Hello friends! In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to paint watercolor sunflowers, this kind specifically. I'm going to take you through the basic sketch and watercolor painting of how to make a sunflower. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we are starting out with our paper. You can use any kind of watercolor paper you have. This one's actually hot pressed. I prefer cold pressed though. It's from this brand. It is the Paul Rubens 100% cotton hot pressed watercolor paper. It comes in these really nice sheets, and you use a palette knife or a butter knife and you cut out the page. I usually cut it out when I'm done, but for today's lesson, for today's sake, I'm going to show you it with the paper out of it, and you can always trim the edges when you're done. But whatever watercolor paper you have is fine. So we are going to start out with this. Use my Winsor Newton watercolors. Whatever watercolor you have is fine though. First we're going to start with the basic sketch, so I won't get too into talking about watercolor paints yet. We're first going to go with a basic pencil sketch. So I'm actually going to use this photo for reference. If you're wondering what I am talking about, it's this one here. Here we are. Okay, changed angles on you guys, but we're going to start with the sketch. So first we start with the center of the flower. So right here where we have the browns, and this is all going to be really loose, but you just want to hold the pencil loosely, whatever pencil you have. This is a 0.3 lead pencil from Mozart. I love this brand. It's actually created by artists. So you're going to start with your round circle. So flowers are really just basic shapes. Once you think about drawing as just making shapes, it makes things make a lot more sense, because then you have something to go off of to know if your proportions and stuff are correct. Now we're going to start with the petals, so I'm going to start with this one up here. You see that one there? It is very kind of a perfect petal. And then we're going to go to the right. So you see the one that's curved. Draw little loose lines that go to a point. Kind of like two arcs that meet and form a petal. It is totally okay if your petals don't look exactly like mine, because guess what? No flower is the same, so we don't want to make the same exact thing anyway. Want this to be unique. Now I'm gonna actually just start going over to that other side, because I just like to fill out my flower first. You can see I have a tiny little petal there. It's actually turned a little bit on its side. If you have some stray lines, that's okay. We can erase them later, or we'll cover them up with paint when we paint it. So gonna just keep doing those little curves. So one line on the side, another on the other. They meet the center of the flower. All petals, their ends point back to the center. It's what makes them look anatomically correct, and it is what helps you know that you're doing it correctly, and you're going to see it looks more realistic when they're like this than if you had a flower petal that was like the end was here, you know. That would look a little weird. Now some sunflower petals, they're still folded in because they curl in sometimes even at night, and then they open back up in the morning. So I have a few over there. And then we are going to draw our stem. Now you can make it come all the way to the edge of the page like I did. I think on this one I'm going to actually make it come up here a little bit, so I have a little bit of more of a border around my painting. So this sunflower is kind of falling a little bit this way. So I'm making first a little leaf that comes out that way, and I forgot a little petal this way. So we have that little green leaf you can see. And we're gonna sketch that in, and then draw down, get end about here, and then draw the other side. Just try to do, if you keep your wrist straight, you don't move it, and just use your arm in this motion where it's sliding on the surface you're drawing on. That will help. I'm gonna make this stem a little bit skinnier. I made it a little too wide. So if you need to fix anything, feel free to use your eraser. And then we're going to do leaves. So leaves, these are kind of curved. You can see this one. This is a little bit of a tricky one. If you want to just do ones like that, that is totally fine. Especially if you're new to this. If you're more experienced, go for it. If you've been drawing for a while, just go for it. Try to copy what you see. Try to draw the anatomy. I'm actually going to leave this one out of that because I don't really like that leaf that much. So I'm just going to make that other one on the other side. Now this is showing because that's going to be on top and this is on the bottom. That's why this is lighter and this is darker. It's going to show the different values. So you will see that. A little bit of the stem of the leaf. And I'm going to just draw a little bit more over there. So now we have our sunflower sketch. And apparently this is really pressed in at the bottom. We have our sketch. Now we are ready. We are ready to paint. We are ready for watercolor. So let's get in on the watercolor. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the watercolor. We're going to try to replicate the same colors. I have my Winsor & Newton watercolor palette here. So I have a bunch of paints already mixed up. We are going to be doing more of a darker yellow, which is this one here. It's called Yellow Ochre. So you can see that one right here. And I have some there. And we're going to be using more of a buttery consistency of paint, which means less water, more paint. So if you want to get some out, we will get that. And we're going to be using sap green, which I have down here. And we're going to be using those two colors and a little bit of burnt umber, which is a brown. So I've got that right here. And I have that on my palette. Down here, you can see it. It's a little bit there. There's some over here too. And I'll probably just mix from that. So, without further ado, I'm going to use my little collection of watercolor brushes here in my Bambi mug. I'm going to use my round brush, even though I've been loving my Blooms brush from Jenna Rainey. Her collection with, not collection, but launching of her brush. It's a round brush with Princeton Heritage, and it's beautiful. It's a size 12, but this is a smaller flower, so I actually want to just stick with my little number 10 round brush. I might actually even go in with my size 3 too. So first we're going to go with some yellow. So get a little bit of water just so you can move your paint around. And we're going to start going in with some darks in the petals. So you're just going to follow your pencil lines. And we're actually going to mix some lemon yellow. I believe that's what this is. No, this is just the cadmium-free yellow. There is a kind called lemon yellow, and I need to get it. So we are going to use a little bit of that too. So you can blend some in, and we're just going to try to go. These are like the lights over here, so we're going to save that till the end, but we're just going to kind of go in with a little bit of the darker petals, and we're going to fill that in. Fill it on up. Fill it in. Now, I don't like using too much of this because I think that sunflowers are just, they're golden, but you know, they're really bright. So I think that we need to use a little bit more of the cadmium free yellow. So just rinse out your brush really well and go in with a little bit of that. Remember, less water, more paint will make it buttery. Butterier, more buttery. Love butter. So we're gonna go in with all those other petals and just get that yellow color in, fill it in, do some little sweeping strokes. Maybe add a petal here or there. If you feel like your flower feels a little empty, go ahead and just try to add a little petal. So you're gonna go with your brush, then press down and lift. Use the point, press, lift. Put those petals in there. I love drawing my flowers first because it always gives me a roadmap and I know where everything is going to go. If I'm doing something a little more freestyle or just for fun, I won't draw it, but for this lesson's sake, it is very helpful in knowing the anatomy. Now sometimes a lot of people go in with the center first, which I actually usually do. But since we have all these petals here, I want to just really focus on the yellows first, and we're going to wait for this to dry so that we aren't getting the brown all muddied in the yellow. So we're going to just keep on keeping on. We're going to put that there and maybe add a little bit of the yellow ochre and add it in a little bit. Add a little bit of shadow. Little dimension to your petals. Put some here. Maybe add there. A little bit right here. Just get that going. And we are going to wait for this to dry. So grab a snack, grab some coffee, tea, you name it, and wait a little bit for it to dry and we'll come back and finish the rest. Okay, so now that our center is dry, we are going to go in with those final details. So we're going to need a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to turn my palette around so you can see this a little better. Burnt umber, sorry. And mine's like very watery. I added way too much water, so I'm actually going to mix it with a little black. So, or you could add more brown. And we're just going to go in and do these little dots. Like you're just tapping the flower. And we're going to go around the edges. And then we're also, you could use a bigger brush for this, but we're also going to go over that red part a little bit with the black. I love how some flowers have that really dark black part in the middle. Might add a little bit more water just to blend it in. Sometimes I'll mix on my paper, and if you have some leftover paint, you can just start adding the dots. It's getting a little water, so I just thickened it up a little bit more. And we're just gonna keep dotting over this whole thing until it is to the consistency of dots that you would like. And we're definitely going to darken that as this dries so that you can separate that petal from the rest of the flower. But before we do that, actually, we're going to go in with a little bit of the dark burnt umber and just kind of sweep your brush next to it in really thin lines to really just like define that shadow there. And then we're going to start going in with our lines on our leaves. So you're going to get a little bit of burnt umber, maybe some yellow ochre, and just barely touch the page and really grip your paintbrush. And you might need to turn your page. That's totally fine. Just turn it as you go. And just add some little flicks of lines. You don't even have to make the lines go over the whole thing. You might want to make some go closer to the petal. Sometimes I use wet parts of the painting as part of my palette, which is what I'm doing right here. Need a little bit darker. So, and just kind of go in where you feel like you want some lines. just to add some dimension to your petals. Add some lines over here. I'm going to do that darkening on the side of this yellow petal right here too. A little bit there. And now that that part's dry here by the stem, you can actually fill in, really get that brown out of your brush though first so you don't make it too dark. You could though darken that area a little bit more. Now we have our green over here, so I'm gonna go in with that bit of green and just fill in that white space now. Maybe add a little bit of a leaf. And if you see any other parts that you want to darken, add some brown into some more, you can go for that now, because these are the finishing touches of our sunflower. Sometimes even at this point I'll add a few more petals. You don't have to do that. For time's sake, we're not going to do that right now. But there you have it, guys. Here is our finished sunflower. You have just painted a sunflower. I hope you loved this video. I hope you had some fun just creating a beautiful flower. Spring is coming so soon. I know sunflowers are more of like a summery flower, but here you have it. I hope you guys liked it. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. And as always, I hope you have a great day.